Now, we marked World AIDS Day earlier this week by speaking to those living with HIV. Well, here's another really incredible story. Lieutenant Commander Oli Brown crashed his bike into a wall 2 years ago and was taken to hospital. The hospital was trialling an opt-out HIV testing service, and to his complete shock, he was told he was HIV positive. Well, he struggled with the stigma and his mental health, but he has used his experience to change the way the whole military deals with the condition. Well, I spoke to him about it, and I started by asking what he went through when he first got that diagnosis.
So straight away, three things jumped into mind, and that was, when am I going to die? What is my life going to be like? And do I still have a job? That is ultimately because my understanding of HIV was based on Rent the Musical. That was the only last time I had engaged with the subject. But the wonderful people working at the hospital soon helped me understand that those first two weren't the case. People living with HIV are on suppressive medication. I take one tablet a day that makes the virus undetectable, and they refer to it as U equals U. Undetectable is untransmittable. And it has zero impact on the way I live my life day to day. But that question of, do I still have a job, lingered for a few days whilst I came to terms with it. I talked to people at work and eventually found out that actually, yes, it's okay, but there would be a couple of limitations in the way that I deployed, worked, and went about sort of the front line side of my role.
So your role had to change because of the HIV diagnosis?
Very slightly, and actually the biggest part of the change is I get recognised as medically limited deployable, and it's that label that almost laboured that stigma around HIV and made me think, well, I'm not limited, but that's what I'm labelled as. And that's where I started asking those questions to talk in defence and go, hang on a minute. It's bigger than this.
And in those questions that you were asking, you actually found that in all of this, you were fortunate because you were already a member of the armed forces. If you wanted to join with that diagnosis, living with HIV, you wouldn't have been able to work for the armed forces.
Yes, you couldn't join the armed forces. So I started working with the Terence Higgins Trust, first as a service user, but then moved that story on and started speaking about living with HIV. And it's resulted in three things. One is that as of spring next year, Defence will be allowing people to join who are living with HIV, who are on effective medication, stable, and the viral load is undetectable. Those serving with HIV, that label that I mentioned of medically limited deployable will be changed, and I'll be seen as fully fit. And the final one is about PrEP, which is a medication for people who don't have HIV that they can take as a positive health choice to stop them having the transmission of HIV to themselves. They will be able to join and serve without any limitation or any question.
If not for your HIV diagnosis, of course, you've changed things for you in your life, but you have now given people who otherwise would not have had an option to join the armed forces that choice. That's because of you.
Yes. It sounds strange to hear it still. With this announcement, I posted on social media to say, this is my story, this is me, openly in all sorts of forms. And one person commented and said, does that mean someone with HIV can now, in the future, join the armed forces? I said yes, and pointed him in the direction of the announcements. And he said, that's amazing, because my son has always wanted to join Britannia Royal Naval College and be an officer in the Royal Navy. He can finally actually live out his dream. And that's everything for me. It's just that one person that knows it's okay.
You are smashing stigmas, changing the lives for so many people, and for that, you should honestly be so, so proud. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.